So this week on Shop Talk, we have a 2006 Nissan X-Trail. It has a front brake pulsation. We're going to be replacing the rotors and the pads with some premium brake parts from NAPA. Rad's going to be taking the wheels off in a couple of seconds, and then we'll get to see what these rotors look like because they're very, very rusty, and I have a bad feeling that the venting of the pads is plugged. Another thing, if you can see, he's got tuner nuts on this car, and tuner nuts come off a certain way with a special wheel socket. Also, when you're putting these wheels back on, they have to be torqued by hand. A lot of guys won't do that, and that leads to warpage and unevenness of the brake pads. Once Rad gets the caliper off, he's going to check and see if the piston's free to move and the slider pins on the bracket are free to move. Those things they have to move or we're going to have a big problem. A couple of points on brakes. There's different types of brake pads available. There's ceramic pads and metallic pads. Metallic pads are fantastic because they bite very well. The problem is they may squeak in the morning or in damp weather. After a couple applications, the noise does go away. Ceramics are probably the best thing out there right now. They have very low dust and they grab very well and they have very minimal maintenance to them. These are ceramic pads here, and they come with proper heat dissipation plates on the back of them, and they also come with the shim kits for anti-rattle. When you buy a set of pads like this, you're going to get better quality and better bang for your buck because they're going to go on very smooth and you're going to have less headaches. Brake fluid needs to be flushed out pretty well with every brake job, and the reason being is it absorbs moisture. When moisture is absorbed in the brake system, the pedal gets spongy. Also, as the brake material wears inside the hydraulic system, the rubber hoses, the seals, they will flake off and start blocking up the line. You need to flush out the brake fluid every time you do a four-wheel brake job or a two-wheel brake job. Is very important. Rad right now is cleaning off the hub surface of the rotor. That hub surface is the flat spot where the rotor mounts. If that is not clean, this car will leave with a brake pulsation right out of the box. That has to be spotless and lubed up so that the rotor can sit on it flat. So what he's doing right now with the pair of pliers is using an old pad to push in the caliper pistons. Those pistons have to go in nice and smooth. If he feels any resistance in those pistons, the caliper has to be rebuilt or replaced. Normally what we do before the brake job, if any shop was to give you an estimate on a brake job, you would take those off first. Push in the pistons, make sure the slider pins are free so you can get a proper estimate on it. If you don't get a proper estimate, it's a surprise when you get the phone call, hey, you need a caliper, when you just budgeted just for a brake job. So Rad's going to lube up the hub assembly now. Now the brake rotor is coming over now, which has been washed in hot water and soap, and then of course cleaned off with brake cleaner. It is very, very important to clean off the brake rotor properly. There is a step-by-step procedure. If you do it right, you get all the metal contents out of that brake rotor. After they've built that brake rotor, there's a lot of metal shavings still stuck in it. When you use soap and water, it removes it. So what he's doing now is finally cleaning off the caliper itself because there's a lot of rust and a lot of old brake material stuck to that caliper. So he's going to clean up best he can so that it mates flat onto the rotor and onto the caliper and onto the pads. Now what Mike is doing with the brake caliper bracket itself is he's cleaned off the area where the pads would sit and the shims, and he's also lubing up the slider pins because it's very important. If you don't lube these up, this thing will not last more than 12 to 24,000 kilometers if we're lucky. And you're supposed to service your brakes every 12 to 24,000 anyways. So proper maintenance on brakes is when you have your brake job done, try to remember that maybe every second oil change to have a look at the brakes and make sure the slider pins are free and that nothing is sticking. Now also, when it comes to brake rotors, there are different levels of brake rotors. There are premium and there are seconds. I prefer to use the premium type because I know they're going to last at least the expectancy of the pads. So if we can get at least maybe 40,000 kilometers out of a set of brakes, we're laughing. If you put on the inexpensive type, you may only get about 20,000 kilometers worth. Sometimes it's not worth it. So what Rad's doing right now is putting the bracket back on. Everything's been cleaned up spotless. Slider pins are free. The pads should be able to slip right in there like bread and butter. Then he'll put the caliper back on, tighten it up. And when he goes to put the wheel back on, you'll actually see him draw the wheel in and torque it on by hand because that's the proper way to do it. And you can can see the way he's torquing that wheel on just with the air gun to draw in the wheel. He's going in a crisscross pattern. That's the proper way to put a wheel on. If anybody's watching that, that's the way you do it. Don't go around in a circle. It's got to be across and across and across and across. Once he gets it down on the ground, he will retorque it twice over. He'll do it once and then the second time.